This presentation is on Garrett Morgellons theory. Garrett Morgellons theory defines Morgellons. Morgellons is a disease that starts with a preliminary condition that suppresses the immune system. The body subsequently becomes infected with a variety of filamentous pathogenic fungi after exposure to toxic mold in the environment. The body's microbiome becomes a complex pathogenic ecosystem that can include bacteria, fungal hyphae or fibers, nematodes, springtails, and tardigrades. Let's talk about the first element, the very first part of that definition. Preliminary factors that could weaken the immune system include chronic illness, particularly Lyme disease, also various cancers, HIV, anything that could make the body chronically ill and suppress the immune system. 2, heavy metals and poisons in the system. I recently had my hair tested for different heavy metals, and the test came back showing mercury poisoning, cadmium poisoning, and also aluminum poisoning. I had previously had my blood tested for mercury poisoning, and it had come back clean, like I didn't have any mercury in my blood. But apparently this doesn't mean that there isn't any mercury in the system. And there really is no healthy level of mercury to be in a human body, as for any other heavy metals. There's also different poisons in food nowadays, such as MSG, and things associated with unorganic gluten products. 3, stressful events. Anything that weakens the immune system significantly. A lot of people have experienced an increase in symptoms for their Lyme disease when they go through stressful events. Some people are completely healthy. One of my friends who has Lyme was completely healthy, and then she had a car accident, and after the car accident, it was very stressful for her. She wound up in a wheelchair, and it wasn't because of injuries, it was because of Lyme disease. For nutritional deficiency, the diet that we eat today is often referred to as SAD, or the standard American diet. We eat far more sugar than we ever ate in history. We eat a lot of processed foods. Our diets currently aren't nutrient dense unless we make a serious effort to do so. And you can read more about nutritional deficiency and how to eat a nutrient dense diet by reading the works of a gentleman by the name of Winston Price. Note, any of the above factors alone or combined can weaken the immune system enough for pathogens associated with Morgellons disease to take hold. The next slide. Let's talk about the third part to this, this is actually the second part of the definition. The body subsequently becomes infected with a variety of filamentous pathogenic fungus from toxic mold exposure. You can be constantly exposed to mold in your home, whether you smell mold or not. My home was very, very new, and I could not smell mold in my home. It appeared to be very clean and good, but I wound up finding mold in a slide that I took from the air filters that I purchased. So there's mold spores in the air, and a significant number of them. It can be from your tap water. I tested the tap water here and found chaetomium in my tap water. And again, this is a newer home, and this is just something that you don't expect to find. And for people who do not have compromised immune systems, it might not be that big of a deal. But for somebody who has a sensitivity to mold because their immune system is compromised from Lyme, this is not good. You can't leave food out for any time period at all, because food can of course decompose and put more mold in your air. You can't leave liquids out. CPAP machines, only fill them with distilled water. and change the water every day, because CPAP machines are just a fantastic place for Chitomium to grow. And that's where we found the most mold was in my husband's CPAP machine. And it just looked cloudy. It didn't really have anything else, but we first were suspicious when we poured hydrogen peroxide in it and it bubbled. And we figured that indicated something. And after a microscopic analysis, we determined that there was an enormous amount of Chitomium globosum in this water in his CPAP, and he was breathing that in. And my husband's very healthy, but that was also blown into air from that was blown onto me like while I was sleeping, and that being sensitive to mold, that could have worsened my Morgellons. Any damp, decaying building materials. If you see mold in your home, you have a problem. If you smell mold in your home, you have a problem. And even if you don't smell or see mold in your home, you may have a problem as we did. Undusted clutter. Make sure that you dust everything and you vacuum frequently. A lot of people online are showing pictures of Morgellons dust and like stuck to their computer and everything. These are actually filamentous fibers from mold and fungus. And if you see any kind of dust around, you really need to keep your house clean. And that's going to lessen your exposure to the mold that's causing your problems that you're sensitive to. But again, this is not a problem that is only caused by one thing. There are a variety of factors at work here. So it's just one element of a larger picture. The soil outdoors can have mold in it, and often does, because soil is decomposed plant and animal matter, so it's going to have mold and mold spores in it. Stay away from wet, swampy environments. Water is a key element to mold production. So I mean, if you just take water out of it, it's very hard for mold to procreate or like reproduce. So they need water. So that's one thing that we can control for keeping our mold exposure down is stay in a dry environment. The molds that were found in the Garrett case study, our case study, were identified as Chitomium and Aspergillus. Chitomium is clear to brown and might make water look cloudy. And again, this is what we found in his CPAP and also in our tap water. After staining, Chitomium was found in the water of my husband's CPAP, as I mentioned before. And this particular species of Chitomium is Chitomium globosum. Excuse me. And you can see on the lower picture all these tiny little sharp spindles that seem to be coming from, like right in the middle here. Let me point to them. All these tiny little sharp things, and again, it feels like broken glass in the lesions. It's very painful, and this is some of the debris that is probably found in our lesions. Let's turn to the next slide. This looks very similar to Morgellons lesions. It is caused by Chitomium. It's the third most common mold and can cause phaeohyphomycosis in immunocompromised persons. So this is an unfortunate person who probably had this exposure from like walking around in swampy environments or soil because of the location of the sores. So he was exposed that way, and they probably put him on some type of antifungal to treat this. And we're going to talk more about that later. Let's go to the next slide. This is an excerpt from Wikipedia, and this talks about a case of Chitomium exposure, and I just want to kind of go through it really quick because there's a couple points I want to make. Although C. globosum are saprophytes, they can cause opportunistic human onychomycosis and cutaneous infections. Such non-dermatophytic species are responsible for a small percentage of onychomycosis cases. Nonetheless, such pathology is rare in humans. The first well-known case of C. blobosum onychomycosis appeared in Korea, where the patient developed hyperkeratosis of the nails. The disease symptoms were cured with antifungal terbinafine and amorphine treatment. Amphotericin B is ineffective toward pathogenic species of the Chaetomium genus. So I know there's a lot of words in here that are kind of crazy, but let's just talk about two things just want to point out. Okay, the disease symptoms were cured with antifungal treatment from two different antifungal agents, okay? So this might not be something that can be treated with just one thing. I also want to point out that there was hyperkeratosis of the nails, which means that like there was a lot of like keratin in the nails. There might have been a color change, and also that this one antifungal agent is ineffective towards pathogenic species of Chaetomium. So this is probably something, this fungal infection that we all have is probably something that we're going to have to treat with either an antifungal agent that has a broad spectrum, or it treats a lot of different types of fungus, or a couple different antifungal agents at the same time concurrently. So this is something to talk to your Lyme doctor about. Aspergillus is a very common mold both indoors and outdoors. It accounts for over 600,000 deaths per year in mostly immunocompromised patients. It's documented as the cause of many infections, including pulmonary or heart infections, as well as cutaneous lesions or skin sores. Usually introduced through trauma. There's this site, this Wikipedia that I took this from. Aspergillus niger is an immunocompromised, this is Aspergillus niger in an immunocompromised patient in India, and this was taken from the Indian Journal of Medical Microbiology. As you can see in this lesion, this large lesion from this poor person, this is something that Aspergillus, something that we can find in American homes, caused. And when you look at this, you can see usually the ridges of the Morgellons sores will kind of have this dead skin that comes off the ridges, and you can see in here that there's like little strings, white strings, and up here we see the spore heads of this Aspergillus, and this is tissue. This picture right here is tissue that has Aspergillus growing throughout it, and you can see one of the telltale signs of Aspergillus is this 45-degree branching of the hypha. So right here you see 45 degrees, and also up here you see 45 degrees just growing through the tissues. So imagine, these are fibers in human tissue, and obviously our skin is the part of our body that's most exposed to mold because it's on the outside of our bodies. I want to talk about cutting hemella. This is a picture taken at 400 times magnification. Also, it's filamentous. This is a type of mold. It's been documented in patients with leukemia and HIV. It grows hyphae into tissue. So those are the fibers in the tissue. I'm not saying that this is infectious mold in every person who has Morgellons. I believe that every person who has Morgellons probably has a different combination of pathogens that they were exposed to, and so it's not something that has a cookie cutter solution to it. It's not, patients aren't cookie cutter. Everybody is unique and different, and we have this factory mindset in our healthcare system that like the same treatment will work for every patient, and that's not the case. And if patients are hard to treat, doctors feel that they need to have the answers, and if they don't have the answers, it's convenient to pass the buck to the patient. So I'll talk more about that later, but let's just focus on cutting hemella for a little while longer. And it's also documented a cause of many infections, including pulmonary and cutaneous lesions. It's usually introduced through trauma as well. And this is, as you can see here, this lesion down here has similarities with Morgellons lesions. So the inflamed edges here, and it's interesting that toxic mold and fungus has the ability to actually dissolve keratin in our skin and liquefy it almost. So when your lesions open up and there's like your skin just disappears, and it's because it's being dissolved by this this mold that would typically not be flesh eating, but in an immunocompromised person it is, and your body is trying to control it. That's why you see inflammation around the sores, like the sores are raised a little bit. That's because like your body's fighting this off, but it's not strong enough to completely destroy it. Your immune system's not strong enough to completely destroy it. So and we'll talk about more how we address that later. This is rhizomycor. This is taken at 40x. This also grows fibers into tissues. It's documented also as the case of many infections, including heart infections as well as skin sores. It causes zygomycosis. This is lung tissue, actually. Down here, you see like the fibers actually in the lung tissue. All this stuff here is actually the lung tissue. And up here, the reason why I chose this picture specifically is because it showed rhizomycor at 40x, and I want to show the similarities between the sizes of these pathogenic filamentous fibers with what we're pulling from our skin. So let's go to the next slide and take a look at diseased lung tissue. This is the same picture from the slide before, this one down here. This over here is healthy lung tissue. So you see all this nice, healthy lung tissue, right? And then over here is diseased lung tissue. And you see how like this is kind of gathered together. And like this is the part that is the filamentous fungi, the rhizomycor. Okay, let's go to the next slide. This is a Morgellons fiber taken personally from my skin. And as you can see, it's the same size as rhizomycor. It's probably also the same size as many other filamentous pathogenic fungi. But I just wanted to show you a size comparison. I don't believe I have rhizomycor, but I could. I don't know. It's difficult to identify because the way that the Morgellons fibers grow, they're growing through our tissue, so they don't really have a lot of room to produce heads and go to spore. They don't have that much room. But some of the black specks that we might see might be the heads of these filamentous fibers, because they're trying to go to spore. And if you look at pictures online of mold that has gone to spore, oftentimes the heads of them are black. So that's a possibility. But anyway, you see this tangled fiber. Very interesting. The similarities between these two things. And again, the growth pattern might be different. Like this was grown in a petri dish. This rhizomycor was grown in a petri dish, and this was grown in human tissue. So, and obviously it was embedded in the tissue. You can see the cells around this. This is not something that just got put in there like a blue gene fiber or something like that. And I'll do a video later on the difference between Morgellons fibers and blue gene fibers, because there is a stark difference. But this video is for people who are suffering from Morgellons, and it's for no other purpose. So I don't need to convince you that Morgellons is real. Saxemia vasiformis is also a filamentous pathogenic mold. This immunocompromised patient in India developed this sore. Again, you see these little strings, these little fibers coming off. Now this could be just the dead skin will just kind of come off of the edges, And this is raised. You see how this part right here is raised? And this part looks like it's been liquefied. It's like a hole in the skin. It's a very bad Morgellons sore. And this picture was an immunocompromised Indian patient with zygomycosis, which can be caused by a bunch of different types of fungus, or fungi, and it's found in soil in India. So I just want to show you another example of why this is a filamentous pathogenic mold that you have a sensitivity to. This slide is just talking about the differences between yeast cells. Like yeast can have like these 3 different forms, and here you see it. And this is a red fiber taken from my skin. Just an example of possibilities. And let's go to the next slide. Okay, this next slide talks about the third part of the definition of Garrett Morgellons theory. The body's microbiome becomes a complex pathogenic ecosystem that can include bacteria, fungal hyphae or fibers, nematodes, springtails, and tardigrades. This image is an image taken from my skin. It's at 400 times magnification, and it is a tardigrade. For those of you who do not know what a tardigrade is, it's going to make Morgellons make a lot more sense after I tell you. Tardigrades are an animal that is basically indestructible. They've sent tardigrades out into space and left them for 10 years without any food or water or anything. And we're able to revive them with just water because they can go into like a dormant form. They're the most tough animal on the planet. And they're microscopic, and they eat dead decaying material and nematodes and things like that. So here's a picture of a tardigrade that was taken that I found online. This is one that's kind of unwrapped a little, kind of stretched out a little bit, and this is one that's kind of curled in a little bit, and I want to show you how it's similar to this. And I want to also point out their claws right here, because tardigrades have claws. You can see them here, and you also see them like right here. So I am certain that this is a tardigrade, and that it is part of the ecosystem in my body and has contributed to the Morgellons in my system being hard to take care of. Now this is a nematode, a strongyloid, like it's a worm, and here you have it at 400x, and here you have it under oil at 1,000 times magnification, very small. So those are 2 organisms that I found in my particular ecosystem. Let's go to the next slide. Cutaneous fungal infections are similar to Morgellons disease. I'm just going to point out the similarities here. Cutaneous fungal infections can produce hole-like lesions. Morgellons produces hole-like lesions. Cutaneous fungal infections happen more frequently in people who have immunocompromised systems. And Lyme disease, specifically Borrelia burgdorferi, has been microscopically identified in the tissues from lesions. This study was done by Eva Sappi and some other scientists, and we'll talk about that in just a few more slides, possibly in the next. Some types of fungal infection do produce artifacts in the form of granules, and Morgellons produces sand granules and other artifacts. The reason that you're getting sand in your lesions is because your body is trying to wall off the fungus. I was talking to my Lyme doctor yesterday about this. People that have farmer's lung, which is actually caused by Aspergillus, the mold that we were talking about after Chitomium. But Aspergillus causes farmer's lung, and when they take x-rays of your lungs and they find that you have farmer's lung, they see that you have little spots in your lungs where your body has walled off the fungus so that it can't grow hyphae into the rest of your tissues. So the granules that we're finding in our sores are actually aggregates or combinations of different materials where body's just trying to seal off the fungus with anything that it can, so it can't proliferate and expand past your sore and out throughout your tissue. So, I have read online, not from peer-reviewed journals, but from people who have had Morgellons and done this, but people have been able to grow filamentous mold cultures out of these artifacts, the spaceships that they call them, and everything else. So that explains the sand, and this is very common in fungal infections as well. Fungal infections, cutaneous ones, cause puritis. It's very itchy, and Morgellons, as you know, is incredibly itchy. Fungal infections are often difficult to diagnose. I think that it might be productive for medical schools to have more classes in addressing how to address fungal infections and what they are. I think people focus too much on the bacteria pathogenic things, and they kind of neglect the fungal side of things. Like fungus can be very pathogenic and just as damaging, if not more in some cases, than bacteria. And of course, we talked about this up here. It happens more often in immunodeficient people, and this, of course, Morgellons is a disease of people who already have weakened immune systems. So I'm going to go to the next slide. I touched on this a little bit before. There were spirochetes that were found in the lesions of people in Eva Sappi's study. Now, she only had 4 patients, and she was very selective with who she picked for the study, because every subject had to have fibers that were under the skin and not in broken skin. So they were definitely inside the person's body, and they could not in any way be fibers from clothing. So this picture shows, this is a stain. They use silver nitrate, which turns spirochetes black. And these spirochetes were found in every one of these lesions from these people who were in the study. Spirochetes were found in everyone. I mean, that right there shows a very high correlation. And even though there weren't like 1,000 people in the study, it shows a very high correlation between Morgellons and Lyme. So if you have Lyme disease, you need to see a Lyme literate medical doctor, which is a special type of medical doctor that treats Lyme in a way that is internationally approved and good. And if you search online for a Lyme literate medical doctor, you will find that there should be one near you in your area. And if you tell that person, that Lyme literate medical doctor, that you have Morgellons, they will look at you and say, "Oh, okay," and they'll know what you're talking about, which is a far cry from going to a regular doctor. Okay, let's go to the next slide. The differences between cutaneous fungal infections and Morgellons. There was a study early on of the fibers that people were pulling from their skin, and it was determined that fibers were made from keratin and collagen. It kind of threw me off a little bit, because I thought, well, if it's made of keratin and collagen, those are materials from our bodies, so it's something that our body's producing. But I couldn't find a comparable study that was done on cutaneous fungal infections, like the fibers from those. But I do want to bring up the old adage that you are what you eat. And so if these fungi are eating us, they're eating our keratin and our collagen, then it is very possible that they too would be made from keratin and collagen. And there really hasn't been an analysis of a fungal hyphae taken from a human skin store that's been analyzed in the same way that they analyze this Morgellons fiber. So I really feel that that the cutaneous fungal infection fibers, if they went through the same study, it's very probable that they too would be determined as being made from keratin and collagen. And that's the only difference I could find. The next slide is what I did to get better. I got a consult for treatment from a Lyme literate medical doctor. I ate a nutrient-dense, anti-inflammatory, natural diet with no sugar, no gluten, and no MSG. You can find information on this type of diet at www.deflame.com. I take baths with a lot of Epsom salts, and I bathe often. I got a water purifier for my shower, my bathtubs, and my sinks. Don't drink tap water until it's tested for mold, or just get a really good water filter. I take lots of grapeseed extract, 900 milligrams a day, and I take it 3 times daily. So I will take 300 milligrams, like 3 pills of 300 milligrams 3 times daily. So that's a lot of grapeseed extract. I also take whole food supplements, and I use standard process because I think that this is a very high quality supplement. I got nice air purifiers with HEPA and UV filtration, so they kind of glow a UV light on and try to kill people, excuse me, try to kill fungus and other different microbes. I don't, I'm sorry. Do your dishes right away. Don't even let them sit for a few minutes. You need to clean your house with enzymatic cleaner often. I use Clean Free Naturally, and that I found on Amazon. I vacuum and dust frequently. I stay away from dirty environments and soil exposure. And I feel that once all my lesions close, I will be more under control. I started a program of prayer and meditation. I also think that if you have problems sleeping, make sure to address that. And I would start with melatonin because it's natural and it's something that occurs naturally in your body. So start with that, and if that doesn't work for you, go to a doctor and see if it's a good idea for you to get a prescription for sleeping medication such as trazodone or Ambien. And also calcium bentonite clay and apple cider vinegar masks as needed. So what you do is you take calcium bentonite and you mix that with 50-50 with apple cider vinegar with the mother in it. So like Bragg's apple cider vinegar is a good example of apple cider vinegar that would have mother in it. So you mix that together and then you smear it all over your sores and you let it dry and then you wash it off. And it will make your skin feel amazing. And it's not unheard of to do one of these masks like once or twice a day. So that really helps get toxins out of your skin. And the Epsom salt baths help get toxins out of your body too. So those are 2 really good ways to alleviate some of your toxic load. Relax, stay positive, and you will get better. And so that's what I've done so far. Now I went to go talk to my Lyme literate medical doctor yesterday, and he is putting me on itraconazole, ketoconazole, and also he's putting me on Ambien and clindamycin and metronidazole, and that is a lot of medication. And I'm going to try to do it with grapeseed extract first, but I really want to try the itraconazole because that addresses all different fungal infections. It's a very expensive medication, but I think that the price is going to be totally worth it. And so if I don't get good results with the grapeseed extract, like good enough results, then I'm going to go ahead and get those prescriptions. I have the paper prescriptions for them right now, and I will let you guys know how I'm doing. But and I'll talk more about that combination of medicine in just a little bit too, because there's some things I want to point out. But I want to go to the next slide and talk about grapeseed extract. It has antifungal properties, and the more you use, the better antifungal effect it has. So if you think this is a good thing, I'm not giving any medical advice in this video at all. Like this, nothing I say is for the is to diagnose or treat any medical condition at all. This is just stuff that I did, things that I found have helped me. And I'm hoping it can just help just one person at least out there. So anyway, this article that I have pasted down here, www.healwithfood.org, it's an article about how grapeseed extract fights candida, and they did this in mice. And it's very expensive to do human studies. So sometimes, you know, when they do things on animals that are mammals, I mean, I think that there's definitely a relation. If they have good success with grapeseed extract fighting candida in mice, then it's also very possible that it would work fine in humans. But who knows for sure? So, but I find that it works really well, and my lesions are healing at least twice as fast as they would be if I wasn't taking grapeseed extract. So it's kind of a gentler way to heal, to use natural things like grapeseed extract. But I think it's less hard on my body, and I'm trying to do this in a gentle way because I've been on ridiculous amounts of antibiotics before for a long period of time, and it's really hard on your stomach, and you have Herxheimer reactions, or Herxheimer reactions are reactions where your body is trying to get rid of all these toxins at once because you had a whole bunch of bacterial or fungal kill off and or die off from the medicine that you take, and it's just, it can be really hard on your body. And a lot of Lyme literate medical doctors and naturopathic doctors that focus on Lyme, they will try to do it in a more gentle manner where you're not harming the body but you're killing the pathogens at the same time. And I think that that's a wise approach. So I'm trying to be wise, cautious, and still get good results. So that's kind of my goal with my treatment. Okay, so there you go. That is Morgellons. Like, I want to go back to the first slide in closing. So give me just a second here. I'm going to go back to the first slide. I want to read the definition one more time, just as kind of like a overview of what I talked about. Garrett Morgellons theory. I named this theory for my husband because he has been so supportive and helpful and has looked at slide after slide with me and just been amazing to bounce ideas off of. And he's really why I started researching this again, because I took a long break from researching this because it's exhausting and it can be depressing because the factors that we're facing are very hard to get a handle on. But I really believe that if we just focus on the little things that we have control over, and we try to take control, and we control those in a good way, like we stay away from sugar, we eat a healthy diet, we eat an anti-inflammatory diet, we stay away from mold, the things that we have control over, that's what we need to focus on. And if we make little changes in that realm, then we will get better. So instead of focusing on what a seemingly insurmountable problem this is, we need to focus on the little things that we can do that will add up to make us better, you know. So don't focus on there's mold everywhere and like there's no way that I can stay 100% completely away from mold. Don't focus on that. Focus on the little things that you can do, and those little things will add up to make a big impact on your health. I promise. So you need to stay positive. You need to not worry, and just focus on all the good things that you can do for your health. So let me read this definition one more time in closing. Morgellons is a disease that starts with a preliminary condition that suppresses the immune system. The body subsequently becomes infected with a variety of filamentous pathogenic fungi after exposure to toxic mold in the environment. The body's microbiome becomes a complex pathogenic ecosystem that can include bacteria, fungal hyphae, nematodes, springtails, and tardigrades. So that's the definition, and I'm just going to go back to this last slide really quick, kind of go through all these slides that I showed you before. And also, like, I just want to kind of go over this for a second. It is undocumented for tardigrades to be parasitic pathogens. Like, it's amazing that I found this in my skin, this one picture, because tardigrades are kind of a little bit cute and cuddly. Like, you can see them there's people that absolutely love these and study these, but for them to actually be existing in a human body, I think is unprecedented. This picture is unprecedented. And it really, like, I really feel that the strength and the adaptability of this organism is what makes my particular case of Morgellons difficult to treat. So let's go back to the last slide. In closing, I want to thank Isla for her Morgellons awareness artworks. She did all of these wonderful paintings and gave everybody the permission to use them for Morgellons awareness purposes. So that's just fantastic. And it really, this is something that many people are going to have to come together on and like add a little bit. Like, every little bit that you add helps and adds up for us to overcome this horrible condition. And I want to encourage you and tell you that everyone has something that they can contribute. And I really hope that there's something that I said in this presentation that will help you help give direction for your treatment. And also, I want to say that itraconazole is probably going to help my treatment out a lot. Oh, that's the thing that I wanted to talk about. I'm sorry. Let me kind of touch on that, because I said I was going to talk about it more. The combination of medicines that that the doctor put me on. So I have this idea that the fungi and the spirochetes are working together, and it was from an article I read, and I'm not sure where the article was or anything like that, but the article was talking about how bacteria and fungus can have a symbiotic relationship, and the bacteria will be in the hyphae of the fungus, like the filaments and the branches of the fungus, and they'll just kind of be in there, and they will suck up the nutrients of they'll suck up the nutrients that the fungus is eating, and so they just kind of hang out there, and then the fungus will just kind of protect them. But then when the fungus is going to spore or needs more energy, it will actually eat some of the bacteria, but not all of the bacteria. So the fungus is farming the bacteria. And I think that spirochetes, a spiral-shaped bacteria that is Lyme and some of its co-infections, I think that it's not impossible for these two entities, the filamentous pathogenic fungi that Morgellons has in it, and also spirochetes to be working together in a symbiotic relationship. And so the doctor put me, and I haven't been on antibiotics for 7 months. The doctor put me on a combination of itraconazole to address the fungal agents, and also ketoconazole, which is this also an antifungal agent. So he put me on 2 different antifungal agents. And then he put me on clindamycin for Babesia and Bartonella, probably. And that's because we think that if there's a symbiotic relationship going on, that once I kill the fungus, that the spirochetes might get into my system more and wreak havoc. So if we add the clindamycin and the metronidazole, that it will address that part of it too. And so that's so much medicine to go on. So I'm hoping to do this naturally first. So I have the paper prescriptions, and I'm going to take them in as soon as I decide for sure. but I'm trying it with just grapeseed extract and my vitamin regimen, and I'm hoping that that helps. But um, I just want to tell you what I'm doing so you guys can consider what you want to talk to your doctors about. So anyway, thank you so much for watching my presentation. I really appreciate it, and I hope that you have a great deal of success fighting Morgellons and healing your body. Thank you so much. Goodbye.